The city lights of New Denver Prime flickered through the falling rain, washing the broken streets in silver reflections. On a quiet corner between old trade warehouses, two alien girls sat under a cracked metal roof. Their clothes were torn and their thin hands held each other for warmth. They looked too young to be out there alone. The taller one, with pale blue skin and silver eyes, was named Lyra. The smaller one, her younger sister by 2 cycles, had green-tinted skin and faint glowing freckles. Her name was Nira. They had arrived on Earth 3 weeks ago from a ruined colony ship that had crashed in orbit. The ship's survivors had been scattered, some rescued, some arrested, and many forgotten. Lyra and Nira were among those who fell through the cracks of bureaucracy. The humans who worked the rescue docks didn't even know they existed. They had slipped away, afraid of being taken to detention centers, afraid of being separated. Now they lived in the back alleys, feeding on scraps and hiding whenever patrol drones buzzed overhead. Nira coughed softly, shivering in the cold. "Lyra, my hands hurt," she whispered. Lyra pulled her sister closer, wrapping her thin arms around her. "I know, little one. Just hold on. The rain will stop soon." She tried to sound calm, but her voice trembled. Her own stomach had not known food for 2 days. The rain slid down her face and she lowered her head, feeling the same weight she had felt since the crash. Helplessness. Across the street, a human man walked slowly, carrying a thermal jacket and a tool pack slung over one shoulder. His name was Daniel Hayes, a maintenance technician who repaired power conduits for the lower districts. His life was quiet and small. Every day he fixed machines that no one thanked him for. But tonight something made him stop. He saw movement in the alley, 2 small shapes pressed against a wall. At first he thought they were stray pets. Then lightning flashed and he saw their faces, not human. Their eyes were bright, their skin faintly luminescent, and their expressions full of fear. Daniel stepped closer, his boots splashing in puddles. "Hey, are you two all right?" he asked softly. Lyra flinched, standing quickly, shielding her sister. "Please, don't report us. We didn't do anything." Her voice was small but firm, like someone who had already begged too many times. Daniel raised his hand slowly. "I'm not with the patrols. I fix wires, not people." He knelt down to their level, trying to show he meant no harm. "You're freezing. You need a warm place." Nira peeked from behind her sister, her lips blue from the cold. "We can't go to the stations. They take us away." Daniel looked at them carefully. They were terrified, not of him, but of the world. He understood that feeling all too well. He had seen refugees before, and he knew how the system forgot them. Something in his chest twisted. He took off his jacket and held it out. "Take it," he said simply. Lyra stared at it, then at him. "Why?" "Because it's cold," he replied. "And because you're shaking." She hesitated, then slowly reached for it. The fabric was warm. She wrapped it around Nira first. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel nodded. "You got a place to stay?" They shook their heads. He sighed and looked around. The night was getting worse, wind cutting through the alley. "All right," he said quietly, as if deciding something bigger than himself. "Both of you come home." Lyra blinked, unsure she'd heard right. "Home?" "Yeah," Daniel said. "My place isn't much, but it's dry. I got a heater and maybe some soup left." She stared at him as if he had spoken an impossible word. "Why would you help us? We're not your kind." Daniel looked at her and smiled faintly. "Doesn't matter what kind you are. You look like you need help." Nira tugged on her sister's sleeve. "Lyra, please." "I don't want to stay here anymore." Lyra's eyes filled with tears she didn't want to show. She looked once more at the stranger, searching his face for any sign of trickery, but all she saw was tired kindness. Finally she nodded. "All right." Daniel led them through narrow streets, past flickering neon signs and shuttered stalls. He moved slowly so they could keep up. Nira limped a little. Lyra kept her arm around her. When they reached a small building near the edge of the power zone, Daniel unlocked the door. The apartment was small, 1 room, 1 cot, 1 table, but warm. He set his tool pack aside and turned on the heater. The hum filled the air and the girls flinched at first, then relaxed as the warmth touched their skin. "You can sit," Daniel said, pulling 2 chairs close to the heater. "Here." He poured water from a kettle into 2 old cups and added some instant broth. "It's not much, but it's hot." They took the cups carefully, hands trembling. Nira took 1 sip and almost cried. It's warm, she whispered. Daniel smiled faintly. Told you. Lyra looked at him across the steam. You don't even know us, he shrugged. You don't need to know someone to help them. Silence settled for a moment, broken only by the soft hum of the heater. Lyra finally said, Our ship crashed. They said survivors would be taken care of, but we got separated. We couldn't find anyone. Daniel listened quietly. He didn't interrupt. They said they would send help, Lyra continued. But no one came. We tried to ask, but humans looked afraid of us. Some threw things. Some called us names. Her voice cracked and she looked away. Daniel felt a deep sadness stir inside him. People fear what they don't understand, he said gently. But not everyone's like that. He got up and found an old blanket from a storage box. Here, you can use this. Nira took it, wrapping both of them. Her eyes began to close as the heat filled the room. Lyra, still awake, watched Daniel moving around, checking the heater, preparing a sleeping mat on the floor. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. I know, Daniel replied, but I want to. Why? He looked at her, then down at his rough hands. Maybe because I know what it's like to have nothing. Lyra's eyes softened. You? Yeah, he said simply. Lost my family in the colony wars. Been on my own since. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Lyra said, Thank you. Daniel nodded, not trusting himself to answer. He turned off the main light and let the dim glow of the heater fill the room. That night, for the first time since the crash, the two alien girls slept in warmth and safety. Nira curled against her sister, whispering softly in her sleep. Lyra stayed awake a little longer, watching the man who had opened his door to strangers. In the silence, she wondered why a species so feared in the galaxy could show such quiet kindness. She didn't understand humans, but maybe that was the beginning of something rare and real. When morning came, sunlight filtered through the window. Daniel was already up, boiling water for coffee. He looked over and smiled faintly when he saw them awake. Morning, he said. Nira rubbed her eyes. Morning. Lyra stood slowly, still unsure if it was all real. You meant what you said? We can stay? Daniel nodded. For now, yeah. Till we figure something better. Lyra looked at her sister, who smiled shyly, then back at him. You saved us. He shook his head. No, you just needed someone to say yes. Outside, the city was still cold, still harsh. But inside that small room, something fragile had begun. Not friendship yet, not family, but the spark of both. And for the first time in a long while, Lyra and Nira believed that maybe, just maybe, they could belong on this strange human world. The morning air in Daniel's small apartment was quiet except for the soft sound of the heater. Lyra and Nira sat close together on the floor, wrapped in the same old blanket that Daniel had given them. They looked cleaner now, their faces washed with the water he had left in a bowl. For the first time since they landed on Earth, they didn't wake up shaking. Daniel placed 2 small bowls on the table. Breakfast, he said simply. Not much, but it's real food. Inside the bowls were bits of bread soaked in warm milk and a few slices of fruit he had saved from his lunch supplies. Nira's eyes widened. Is this for us? Yeah, Daniel said, smiling slightly. Eat before it gets cold. They ate slowly, as if afraid the food might disappear. Daniel watched them with quiet satisfaction. He didn't talk much, but something about seeing them safe made his morning different. For years, his life had been routine. Fix cables, file reports, come home to silence. But now there was sound. Quiet laughter. The soft rustle of 2 small lives rediscovering warmth. When they finished, Lyra looked at him. We can help, she said. We don't want to just take. Daniel thought for a moment. You can help by resting first. After that, we'll see what you can do. Lyra nodded, understanding. She had always been the one to take care of her sister, but now someone else was doing it. It felt strange and a little heavy and to accept kindness. After breakfast, Daniel left for work. Before leaving, he said, Lock the door and don't open it for anyone. I'll be back by evening. Lyra nodded again, serious. We'll stay quiet. When the door closed, the sisters sat in silence for a while. Nira looked around curiously. Do you think he's really going to come back? Yes, Lyra said after a pause. He said he would. But people lie sometimes, Nira whispered. Lyra looked at the door. I don't think he's one of those. Nira smiled faintly. He's strange for a human. Lyra almost laughed. Yes, strange in a good way. When Daniel returned that evening carrying a small bag, the room was cleaner than before. The floor was swept and the table was wiped. The two girls had tried to organize his things carefully. He stopped at the door, surprised. "You didn't have to do all this," he said. Lyra smiled shyly. "You said we could help." Daniel put the bag down and took out some bread, canned soup, and fruit. "Then maybe you can help me eat this." Nira clapped her hand softly, her freckles glowing a bit brighter. Real dinner. That night they ate together, and for the first time in years Daniel found himself telling stories. He told them about the machines he fixed, about power cables that sparked like thunder, about the time he had to crawl through flooded tunnels to repair a generator. Nira listened wide-eyed and Lyra smiled quietly. In return, they told him about their homeworld. It had blue forests that sang when the wind passed through them, and rivers that glowed in the dark. Their people lived in tall glass towers that reflected the sky. But then war came, and later the crash. Daniel listened with respect, not pity. "You'll see forests again," he said softly. "Maybe not like yours, but Earth's got a few left." Lyra looked at him. "You believe that?" "I do," Daniel said. "If you can survive space, you can survive anything." The days passed, turning into weeks. The girls started adjusting to human life slowly. Daniel helped them get simple clothes from a second-hand stall. They learned to boil water, to fix small things around the room, and even to help him sort his work tools. One morning, Daniel took them to the repair district where he worked. The large hall was filled with machinery and bright lights. "Stay close," he said, leading them through. Nira pointed at a glowing panel. "What is that?" "Power node," Daniel explained. "It keeps this whole section running." She leaned closer, her natural curiosity shining. "I think I understand how it flows." He looked at her in surprise. "You do?" "Yes," she said. "Our ship used something similar, but with plasma channels." Daniel's eyebrows lifted. "Plasma channels, huh? You're smarter than me already." Lyra smiled at the way he said it. She could tell he was proud of them, even if he didn't show it much. Over the next few days, Nira started helping him in small ways. She learned how to test circuits and hold the scanner steady. Lyra, on the other hand, helped around the housing sector, cleaning and organizing old storage boxes for trade. Together, they made the little apartment livable. One evening, as the three of them sat eating soup again, a loud knock came on the door. Daniel frowned. "Stay here," he said, getting up. When he opened the door, two patrol officers stood outside. Their white helmets gleamed under the hallway light. "Sir," one said sharply, "we received a report about unregistered aliens in this building. Have you seen anyone matching their description?" Daniel's chest tightened. "No," he said calmly. "Just me here." The officer glanced past him, but Daniel didn't move aside. "We'll need to check your premises." Daniel smiled thinly. "You got a warrant?" The officer frowned, hesitating. The other one checked a tablet. "Not yet, but if you're hiding, then come back when you do," Daniel interrupted. His voice stayed level but firm. "You can scan the registry. My place is clean." They exchanged looks, then finally stepped back. "We'll be back," one warned. When Daniel closed the door, his hands were shaking. He turned around to find Lyra and Nira standing there, their faces pale with fear. "They're looking for us," Nira whispered. "I know," Daniel said. "But you're safe here. I won't let them take you." Lyra looked at him, eyes wide. "They'll come back." "You could get in trouble?" Daniel met her gaze. "Maybe. But I'd rather be in trouble than see you two out there again." Nira ran forward and hugged him suddenly. Daniel froze for a moment, then gently put his hand on her shoulder. "It's okay," he said quietly. "We'll figure it out." After the patrol left, he turned off all the lights and sat with them near the heater. The city outside was loud, but inside it felt like another world. Small, fragile, but real. The next day, Daniel made a plan. He contacted an old friend who worked in the Refugee Integration Office. Her name was Mara, and she owed him a favor. When she came to visit, she looked at the girls with tired eyes but a soft smile. "You're lucky," she said. "Not many people would risk this," Daniel replied. "They just needed someone to care." Mara examined the girls' identification tags, which were half burned from the crash. "I can file them under special humanitarian status," she said. "But it'll take time." "How long?" Lyra asked quietly. "Maybe weeks," Mara said. "You'll have to stay hidden until then." Daniel nodded. "We can do that." For the next few weeks, they lived carefully. Daniel taught them human customs, how to speak softly on the streets, how to blend in, how to smile when people looked suspicious. The girls learned fast. Nira even started drawing little pictures on scraps of paper, stars, ships, and sometimes Daniel fixing machines. One night, as they sat together, Lyra looked at Daniel and said, "You could have walked away that night in the rain." "I could have," he said, "but you didn't." He smiled slightly. "Maybe I was waiting for something worth coming home to." She didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. For her, too, the meaning of home had changed. It was no longer a place of glass towers and shining skies. It was this: a tiny room, a heater humming softly, a human who believed they belonged. Weeks later, Mara returned with the documents. "They're clear," she said. "You're registered now. Official refugees. You can stay." Nira jumped up, laughing in disbelief. "We can stay?" "Yes," Mara said with a smile. "You have rights now." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She turned to Daniel, unable to speak. Daniel just smiled. "Told you we'd figure it out." The three of them stood there for a moment, the world outside forgotten. That night, the girls cooked dinner for him for the first time. Simple soup and bread, but made with their own hands. They laughed when it spilled and smiled when he pretended it was the best meal of his life. Later, as the city lights blinked beyond the window, Lyra looked out and whispered, "We used to think humans were dangerous." Daniel, sitting nearby, looked up. "And now?" "Now I think," she said softly, "humans are the reason we're still alive." Nira smiled, leaning against her sister. "He said both of us come home." And we did. Daniel looked at them quietly, feeling something he hadn't felt in years: peace. Outside, the rain started again, washing the streets clean. But inside that small apartment, three souls from different worlds had already found what they needed most: warmth, trust, and a home that didn't care about species or borders. The weeks after the girls got their refugee papers passed in quiet peace. Lyra and Nira slowly adjusted to their new lives, and Daniel began to notice how different his home felt now. The small apartment, once silent and cold, was filled with sounds of life: soft laughter, the clatter of dishes, and the hum of music from an old radio he had not turned on in years. One morning, Daniel woke up early to prepare for work. He found Nira sitting near the window, sketching again. She had become very good at it. The pages were filled with drawings of machines, stars, and even a picture of him holding his toolbox. "That's me?" Daniel asked, smiling. Nira nodded proudly. "Yes, you look serious," he laughed quietly. "I usually am." Lyra came out from the small corner they used as a sleeping area, her hair tied back neatly. "She has been drawing all night again," she said softly. Nira looked up. "I had ideas. The stars in my dreams looked different last night." Daniel leaned on the window frame, looking outside. The morning sun was weak but golden. "You know," he said, "maybe those dreams mean you're ready for more than just staying hidden." Lyra frowned a little. "What do you mean?" "I mean you two can start living," Daniel replied. "You've been surviving. Now you can do more." Lyra thought about it all day. She knew he was right. The fear that had lived in her heart since the crash had slowly faded. Earth was still strange, but Daniel had made it feel safe. She wanted to be more than a refugee. She wanted to belong. That evening, when Daniel came home from work, Lyra was waiting. "We want to work," she said. "We want to help you or anyone. We can learn fast." Daniel nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "I'll ask around tomorrow. Maybe someone in the repair district could use some extra help." The next day, he spoke with his supervisor, a tired but kind man named Leon. When Daniel explained about the girls, Leon raised an eyebrow. "Aliens, huh? You sure about this?" "They're smart," Daniel said firmly. "And they just need a chance." Leon shrugged. "You take responsibility, I'll give them a trial shift. Cleaning tools, sorting parts. If they work hard, they can stay." When Daniel told the girls that night, Nira jumped in excitement. "We get to go with you?" "Yes," he said. "But it'll be real work. You'll have to be careful, follow the rules." "We can do that," Lyra said with quiet confidence. Their first day in the workshop was full of new sights. The air smelled of metal and heat. Sparks flew as machines buzzed. Lyra kept her hands close to her sides at first, nervous. But Daniel guided her gently. "Here, this is the sorting rack. Everything has a place. Nira watched other workers carefully, her eyes following every movement. Soon she began to hand Daniel the correct tools before he even asked. By midday, Leon came over and nodded approvingly. They learned quick, he said. Daniel smiled. Told you. As days went by, the sisters became part of the small repair team. The others were still cautious, but they couldn't deny the girls' hard work. Nira had a natural sense for circuits, and Lyra's hands were steady and precise. Together, they saved Daniel hours of work. One afternoon, a power surge struck the workshop. A circuit exploded and smoke filled the air. Workers shouted, alarms blaring. Daniel ran toward the main panel. "Shut it down," he yelled, but the control board was locked up unresponsive. Sparks flew dangerously close to the coolant tanks. Lyra saw it and didn't hesitate. She dashed forward, grabbed the emergency override lever, and pulled with all her strength. The system groaned, then finally shut down. The room went quiet except for the sound of steam hissing from broken pipes. Leon coughed and looked at her in shock. You just saved the whole place." Lyra looked down, her hands shaking slightly. "I saw it heating too fast," she said simply. Daniel smiled at her, proud. "Good work. You've got instincts." That evening, as they walked home, Nira kept looking at her sister. "You were brave today," Lyra laughed softly. "I just didn't want the place to burn down." "Still brave," Nira insisted. Daniel walked behind them, quietly proud of both. They had come from hiding in rain-soaked alleys to saving a workshop. Humanity had seen them as lost creatures once, but now they were proving themselves side by side with humans. Later that night, Daniel fixed a broken radio on the table while the sisters sat nearby. Music filled the room, and a soft old tune from Earth's past. Lyra closed her eyes, listening. "What is this song?" she asked. "It's from a long time ago," Daniel said. "It's about hope." "Hope," Nira repeated, trying to understand the word. "It means believing things can get better," Daniel explained. Nira smiled. "We have that now." Time moved on. Months passed. The sisters began to earn small wages from the workshop, enough to buy food or save a little. They insisted on paying Daniel rent even though he laughed and said it wasn't necessary. "Your family," he told them once. But they paid anyway, proud to stand on their own feet. One evening, Leon called Daniel aside. "You heard about the new colony ship project?" Daniel nodded. "The Horizon?" "Yeah," Leon said. "They're building it right here in the city docks. They're hiring technicians. They need people with calm hands and quick minds." Daniel thought of the girls. "You think they'd accept off-worlders?" Leon shrugged. "They need workers. Maybe it's time someone gave them a chance." That night, Daniel told Lyra and Nira about it. "It's a big ship," he said. "Human and alien engineers working together. It's a start to something better. Cooperation, maybe even friendship between species." Lyra listened silently. "You think they'd take us?" "They'd be lucky to have you," Daniel said. Nira's eyes shone. "Can we see it?" The next morning, they visited the shipyard. The unfinished vessel loomed high above them, shining silver under the sun. Workers moved like ants across scaffolds. The sisters stood in awe. "It looks like home," Nira whispered. Lyra nodded. "But built by humans," Daniel smiled. "By humans, and maybe soon by you." They met the ship's supervisor, a woman named Captain Rains. She was tall and serious with sharp eyes. She looked at the girls' refugee cards, then at Daniel. "You vouch for them?" "I do," Daniel said firmly. "They're some of the hardest workers I've ever seen." Rains studied the girls for a moment, then nodded. "Trial period. If they pass the safety test, they're in." The sisters passed. They worked together, adjusting plasma coils and calibrating systems with steady focus. Rains watched in silence, impressed. "Looks like you were right, Hayes," she said later. "They've got talent." When Daniel told them the news that night, that they'd been accepted, Nira burst into laughter, spinning in circles. "We're engineers now," she said proudly. Lyra smiled, tears in her eyes. "We made it." Daniel looked at them, feeling something deep and quiet in his chest. "You earned it," he said softly. In the months that followed, the girls became respected members of the shipyard. Other workers began to greet them warmly, no longer with suspicion. Lyra's calm strength and Nira's curious mind made them well-liked. But Daniel still came by every evening, bringing food and stories, checking on them like an older brother. They had started their own journey now, but their bond with him remained unbroken. One night, as the stars shone above the docks, the three of them stood together, watching the horizon glow in the dark sky. Lyra said quietly, "When we crashed here, I thought the stars had left us." Daniel looked at her and said, "Sometimes you have to fall before you can see the light." Nira nodded. "We fell, but we landed on someone good." Daniel smiled, his eyes warm. "And you gave me a reason to believe again." They stood there, three souls from different worlds, bound by something stronger than blood, compassion, loyalty, and shared hope. And when the Horizon finally launched months later, with humans and aliens working side by side, the world saw what Daniel had seen long before. That kindness could bridge even the stars. The Horizon stood ready at the launch docks, shining under the bright lights of the city. Its silver frame stretched high into the sky, surrounded by cranes, cables, and the sound of engineers working through the final night. It was the largest human-alien cooperation project ever built, a ship meant to travel beyond old colonies and bring aid to forgotten worlds. Lyra and Nira had worked on it for months, side by side with human engineers. Every bolt they tightened, every system they calibrated felt like another piece of their past healing. Daniel often watched them from below, his heart full of quiet pride. They had come so far, from two lost girls shivering in the rain to respected workers on a ship that symbolized unity. On the night before the launch, Daniel arrived at the docks with 3 cups of hot tea. He found the sisters working late, testing the final power conduits. "You two never rest," he said with a smile, handing them the cups. Lyra laughed softly. "You taught us that work keeps the heart strong," Daniel chuckled. "I might regret that lesson now." They sat together on a crate looking up at the ship. The stars were faint behind the city lights, but the reflection of the horizon made them seem closer. Nira sipped her tea carefully. "Tomorrow we leave the city," she said. "We go where no one knows us, that's the point," Daniel said. "You'll be part of something new." Lyra turned to him. "You could come with us. They need technicians too." He smiled faintly. "I thought about it, but someone has to keep fixing this broken city while you two fix the stars." Nira frowned. "You always help others, but who helps you?" Daniel looked at her, surprised by the question. "You already did," he said softly. "You gave my home back its meaning." The sisters exchanged a glance, their eyes bright in the dim light. Lyra reached out, resting her hand on his arm. "Then promise you'll visit us when the ship returns." "I promise," he said. The next morning came with a red sunrise. The docks buzzed with excitement as crowds gathered to watch the launch. Flags from both human and alien colonies waved side by side. For many, it was the first time they had seen different species working together with trust. Lyra and Nira wore their new uniforms, gray jumpsuits with the Horizon insignia. Daniel stood among the crowd, his heart swelling with pride and a touch of sadness. When the launch horn sounded, the ground trembled. Steam rose from the vents as the ship's engines powered up. Nira looked through the observation window one last time and saw him below, waving. She pressed her hand against the glass, smiling. Then the ship lifted, slow and powerful, into the sky. The roar shook the air. Daniel watched until it disappeared among the clouds. For a long time, he stayed there, staring upward. The following weeks felt quiet. Daniel returned to his usual work, repairing power lines, checking circuits. But something was different. Every night he'd look up at the stars, thinking of them. He missed the laughter, the drawings on scraps of paper, the way Nira hummed while working, and how Lyra quietly organized everything before bed. Sometimes he would still make 2 extra cups of tea out of habit. He'd smile at himself and whisper, "They'd tell me to stop wasting tea." Months passed and news of the Horizon spread across the networks. The ship had reached a distant colony that had been silent for years. Its crew had repaired the local generators, built shelters, and shared new technology between humans and aliens. The name of the Horizon became known across worlds, not as a warship, but as a beacon of cooperation. One evening, Daniel returned home to find a small communication beacon blinking on his table. He hadn't used it in a long time. When he activated it, the projection flickered. Oh, and there they were. "Daniel," Nira's voice burst out first, bright with excitement. Lyra stood beside her, smiling. "We're safe. The mission is working. The Horizon is helping more worlds than we imagined." Daniel laughed softly, relief washing through him.
You both look
Different, happier. Nira grinned. We are, but we miss your soup. He smiled. Still can't cook? Never learned, Lyra said, shaking her head. You'll have to teach us again when we return. He looked at them, his throat tight. I'll be here. They told him stories, of strange worlds covered in ice, of new species who greeted them with songs, of children who had never seen the stars until the horizon brought light back to their cities. Daniel listened in silence, filled with pride. Before the transmission ended, Lyra said quietly, You saved us when no one else would. Now we're saving others. That's because of you. Daniel didn't know what to say. He simply nodded. Keep doing what you're doing. The galaxy needs more of that. After they disconnected, the apartment felt alive again, even though it was empty. He sat for a while, smiling at the quiet hum of the heater. It reminded him of the night he first met them. Cold rain outside, 2 frightened girls, and one simple decision that had changed everything. Months later, word came that the Horizon would return to Earth for maintenance and new crew rotations. The entire city prepared to welcome it home. Daniel stood at the docks once more among the cheering crowd. The ship descended slowly through the clouds, bright lights cutting through the mist. When the landing ramp lowered, the first faces he saw were Lyra and Nira. They spotted him almost instantly and ran down the ramp together. Nira reached him first, hugging him tightly. You came. Of course I came, Daniel said, laughing. You think I'd miss this? Lyra joined them, smiling. We brought you something. She handed him a small metal pendant shaped like a star, engraved with the Horizon's emblem. It's made from the first alloy we built together, she explained. You're part of it too. Daniel turned it over in his hand, eyes glistening. I don't know what to say. Just say you'll wear it, Nira said. He smiled. Always. Over the next few days, they stayed together again, catching up on everything they had missed. They cooked dinner in the same old apartment, shared stories late into the night, and laughed until the walls seemed warmer. But now, something had changed. The girls weren't the lost, frightened souls he had once found. They were confident, strong, and hopeful. Lyra looked around the small apartment one evening and said softly, This place, it feels smaller than I remember. Daniel nodded. That's because you've grown, Nira smiled. And you taught us how. The next day, Lyra spoke to him privately. We're joining the Horizon again when it leaves next cycle, she said. They're expanding the mission, building new outposts. We'll be gone longer this time. Daniel nodded slowly. I figured you would, she hesitated. Are you angry? He shook his head. No, I'm proud. The universe is wide. It needs people like you. Nira came over, hearing the end of the talk. We'll send messages. Every week. You better, Daniel said with a grin. When the time came for them to leave again, the sky was clear. The ship stood ready, larger now with new modules and markings. Daniel walked them to the ramp. Lyra turned before boarding. When you found us, you said both of you come home. We did. But now we carry that word with us wherever we go. Daniel nodded, his voice thick. Then make it count. Nira smiled and said softly, We will. Because humans don't just build ships, they build hope. Daniel watched as they walked up the ramp together side by side. The engines roared, lifting the ship into the sky once more. He stood there until it vanished among the clouds. When he finally turned back toward the city, the sunlight caught the pendant around his neck. It glimmered faintly like a tiny star, a reminder of what one act of kindness could become. That night, Daniel sat by the window, looking up at the sky. He didn't feel alone. Somewhere out there, 2 girls he had once saved were saving others. The world and maybe the galaxy was better because one human had stopped in the rain and said 6 simple words. Both of you, come home.